The podcast that you are about to enjoy is part of the LOWTREE Studios podcast network. To enjoy more great podcasts like this one, visit lowtreestudios.com.
Wreck My Podcast!
Look, it's a bird. It's a plane. No, it's a superhero movie in the found footage genre that sorely underutilizes Michael B. Jordan. We watch Chronicle on this week's episode.
Wreck My Podcast!
Welcome to the Wreck My Podcast, where this week, again, it's the dynamic duo. She watches this movie because she really loves me. It's my wife, Madison.
It's me.
It's a Madison. And I've read philosophy, so I'm super cool now. I'm your host, Jordan. This week, we're talking about the movie Chronicle. Now, Madison, you don't like this movie very much, so let's talk about the story of why you originally watched this movie.
I definitely think you should tell the story, and then I'll just jump in and correct you.
Oh, that's how it goes. Okay, that's how it is having the wife on the podcast.
It's a good
over
story.
Here. So for people that don't know our story, we met in 2011, and we dated for a month, and then we stopped dating, and then we didn't really talk to each other much for 2 years, and then we started hanging out again and got back together 2 years later, and the rest is history because now we're married. So the original time we dated for that month, this movie came out like a month or two after we stopped dating.
Yeah.
When we were trying to be like just friends kind of thing, where like the dating didn't really work out. We were like, yeah, but let's like still hang out and stuff like that. So we went and saw this movie technically when we weren't boyfriend and girlfriend, but just the two of us. And I was really excited to see this movie because I was a huge fan of the found footage stuff. I was really into Cloverfield at the time. I like superhero stuff, obviously, as everyone knows. So I invited you to go, and I thought you were really into it. I thought you actually cared. You actually wanted to see it. I thought you enjoyed the movie. We talked about it afterwards. And then years later when we were dating, and I was like, oh, I have Chronicle. Do you want to watch it? You informed me. I hate that movie. I literally only went and watched it with you because like I was still trying to hang out with you and stuff.
No, okay. I don't have a lot of memories. I remember, well, first of all, disclaimer, I was 19 the first time we dated. So I was like, pretty young, like newly out of high school.
And I was like 32.
No, you were like 22. But I remember like, you know, obviously Jordan and I only dated for 3 weeks and like it didn't work. It was weird. We were both at like very transitional times in our lives and we were like, what the heck are we doing? We should have just stayed friends, like, because we got along really well. We just couldn't quite figure out the other component of it. And so after we were like, okay, we're just going to be friends, I think it had been like a month because there was like 2 or 3 times we actually hung out over the coming months before we like didn't talk for 2 years.
Well, this came out February 3rd, 2012. So it definitely, because we started dating in like
so it was
October or
months.
November.
Yeah, we were broken up by the end of
Christmas,
November, pretty much. Yeah. So I know we saw each other a few times, like following, and then we were like, cool, whatever. Like, we're just not going to be friends or whatever. But I do remember thinking, like, after we broke up, that we were like gonna still hang out, and then it wasn't really happening. And then somehow you had reached out, or I had seen you post something about that you were gonna go see it, and I was like, the only way I knew how to like even like feign an interest in like you wanting to hang out with me, I was like, oh my gosh, like I so want to see that movie too. And this was at the time when Jordan was like, oh my gosh, like she's so nerdy and cool and like all this stuff. So it fit my genre that I would be like interested. You were talking to me about like
the Mortal Kombat trailer and who was in it and all this and that.
I grew up with Street Fighter and everything. So like Jordan still thought I was just like this ultra cool like nerdy girl. And so I feigned interest in it, and then we ended up going to the movies, and I don't remember if it was just you and I.
No, it was just you and I.
Yeah, we went to the movies together, and then I hated the movie, and I feel like it was just really awkward, and then I think that was the last time.
I think that was the last time we
and then we
hung out.
didn't talk for 2 years.
Well, we talked every time each one of us had a birthday, we texted each other and said happy birthday, but that was literally, we didn't hang out in person for 2 years.
No.
Yeah. So, and mostly that was because you got a boyfriend that you were with for almost that entire time, and I just was like, I'm not going to step on anyone's toes. Who wants their like ex-boyfriend coming around when you're dating someone else and stuff? So mostly that was the reason. So let's do, for people that either haven't seen this movie in a while, you should. I like it.
You
Madison
should
doesn't.
not.
This is gonna be marital discord right now.
Yes.
We're gonna play a trailer real quick, and
Yes.
you can kind of see and hear what is going on with this movie.
You're probably gonna want to get this on camera.
I don't want to do it. Dude, I don't want to do it.
Okay, are you ready?
Okay,
Come on,
you have
do
to
it.
Give me a countdown.
I will,
okay?
I promise.
Crap.
Are we rolling? I'm gonna get the gum. Pull it right out of his mouth.
Wait, why are you ready? I got this one. Just wait. She's just looking at it.
This is my theory, though, is that it's like a muscle.
Watch this. Dude! Holy crap!
That's why I think we're getting stronger, you know?
She thinks it's stolen. She thinks it's stolen.
Yes, it was the black guy this time.
Because we're working it out.
There's nothing stopping us.
Where are you going?
I'm sorry.
That's just some redneck. What the hell is this guy's problem?
Stop! Are you crazy? Why did you do that? What the hell is wrong with?
Was it an accident, Andrew? Andrew? I'm worried about Andrew. Listen to me. We can't screw around with this. It's too dangerous. Andrew, it's not a game.
Andrew! Stop this right now!
Who's making that sound? What is that? All right, dude, we're going inside.
Steve, wait up.
Matt, look at this!
Holy.
All right, so that was the movie. Now, we don't have to ask, have you watched this before? When was the
Right.
last time? Because we
kinda
kind of just talked about that, everything. I want to know, Madison, why do you hate this movie so much? What is it about this movie? Because even when we were watching it the other night, you were kind of disinterested the whole time. And I'll give you that watching it again now 8 years later, I was like, okay, this isn't as good as I remember because I don't think I've watched it since. I think we saw it in theaters. I was really impressed. And then when Blockbuster was going out of business, I found a DVD of it for like $1.99 and I bought it and I never watched it until now for the podcast. And I was a little bit more disappointing. So I was like, it's not as good as I remember. But I still found myself at the end very emotionally invested and very much like enjoying some of the scenes and stuff and finding some of the finer points. So what do you hate about this movie?
I feel like I was telling Jordan after we watched it, I'm like, if somebody asked me, like, what is a movie you hate, I would say Chronicle. Like,
Probably
I
also
hate
Cloverfield. I think you just don't like found footage stuff.
No, I feel like I was okay with Cloverfield, but I really actually like detest this movie. But I feel like one of the biggest things that I don't like about it, which I'm not saying is like, awful across the board, but I feel like 90% of this movie is them. I can tell they're improvising, right? Like they're just like, oh, this general thing is going to happen in this scene. You feel scared going down this tunnel. You don't want to follow them or whatever. And for 5 minutes, it's them just being like, Andrew, wait, stop. I'm scared. Andrew, wait. And like they just say the same things over and over again. And I'm like, look, this movie could have been 25 minutes. Like you could have actually written like a solid script and had them move the plot along. Like so much of it is just that.
Yes.
And I feel like at the end when you feel the emotion of like, oh my gosh, like I'm so emotional. I feel the emotion of like, this has been going on way too long. Like they don't have one climax moment. It's like a quote unquote climax for like 30 minutes. And it's so stupid.
Well, it's funny you say that because this movie is actually very short. It's only like an hour and 20 minutes long.
And it's still way too long.
And you still think it's way too long. And the climax is only like 8 minutes long, actually.
And it should be 1 minute or second.
Endgame legitimately had a 55-minute climax.
But the difference is, well, I mean, we don't need to go into
yeah. So here,
those are the reasons
I get what
I
you're
don't
saying.
like
There
it.
are a lot of times where it's a lot of like, yelling, what's going on, and
Stop!
shaky camera,
Don't be
just
mad.
stop, what are you
yeah,
doing?
It's so stupid.
You're right, there's a lot of that. But yeah, so I get that.
That's just
no,
part
I can't
of it.
defend those parts
That's
because
just a part of it.
And that's a part of the found footage genre too. It's like all the movies have a lot of that, even Blair Witch and everything. Like all of them have that. So it's just a part of watching it, which is why I think found footage movies are a little bit shorter because they know people don't want to sit through as much of this.
Also, though, correct me if I'm wrong. Is Creep not a found footage?
Creep is a found footage. Now, the difference is...
That's not a super long one. I feel like they move it along really well.
Yeah, it's only like an hour and 10 minutes.
They do a good job. It's a small cast, too. Like,
True.
So it's not that I hate found footage across the board. I just don't like the way they did this one.
Yeah, you're right. So I can't really defend that, but here's some things I did want to talk about. Some of the CGI is pretty bad in it, too, actually, looking back at it now.
Yeah.
So can't defend that. The whole idea of it being a found footage thing, I feel like it's actually a detriment to it because I feel like they run into this problem more times than once where they had to come up with a way that the camera stays on what's going on. And half the time it's very unrealistic. Now, I like what they did where they moved it around like security camera footage or like people's cell phones and stuff like that. That was actually a cool way of doing it. I feel like this movie would have benefited if it was filmed normally, except for just certain scenes. Like at the beginning when he's filming because his dad's abusive and he's like, I got a camera now. But then like when they went to school, it was normal and he didn't take it with him everywhere. He only took it places where like it made sense to take it.
Right.
And then the climax scene where it's all like news cameras and people's phones, I felt like that was really cool. And I feel like 75% of this movie should have just been normal filming, and they have some cool moments like the fight sequence and stuff where it just hops to those sequences in like found camera footage type stuff. I feel like that would have been a little bit better. Now, I really do like one part I really like about this is when Andrew finally does kind of go full villain. He puts on the firefighter outfit, and I know it's essentially just like My Bloody Valentine or whatever that movie was, where the dude's in like the miner outfit and he's got the gas mask on and stuff. But I really like the look of like a villain just going around like mowing people down in this like menacing firefighter suit.
Okay, but tell me, how long was he in the suit?
Oh, not very long. It was
Not
like
even
maybe
long.
5 minutes of the movie.
Not even.
Yeah, because he killed the thugs and then he went to the
Slowly
store.
After, yeah, and then when he's full villain, he's not even in that suit.
No. And the point is that was cool, but like they weren't going to have him be in villain mode for most of the movie. Most of the movie is you kind of like
But he's
watching...
villain mode from then on.
Yeah, but that's only like the last 10, 15 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, but you said the movie's only like an hour and 50
Yeah, so that's why
minutes.
like the first 75% of the movie is just them kind of goofing around and figuring things out and all that. Did you notice there was no music the whole movie? There was no original score for this movie.
Yeah, that makes sense because it's all found footage.
Yeah.
Why would they have music
I
in the
didn't feel like...
Although there was music because he sang the song.
Well, there's music, like he would have his like record player on, or when they went to the...
They had an awful lip sync moment.
Yeah.
That was like the fun comedic relief of
Yeah,
it.
exactly. So like they had music.
Yeah.
But music that would be like in the car while you're driving and crap like that. I didn't actually notice it. Like I got to the end, I was like, oh, that's right, there was no score. Which normally you feel like something's missing. I didn't feel like anything was missing in this movie. But again, this is like a weird movie. It's like a very...
I feel like there's normally not a score in movies like that. Like, did Creep have a score?
No, Creep didn't have a score. Neither did Cloverfield. No found footage does.
Genres.
But sometimes I feel like something's missing. So like I definitely felt like in Blair Witch something was missing during that whole... I just feel like 'cause that was the first one. They hadn't ironed it out yet, you know? So... this one I didn't notice it in. Also, Matt is the worst type of high school stereotype. I hated his character so much. I don't believe this guy. First off, I don't believe that he would be that stupid about stuff, what he was saying. I also, I hate the stereotype. I was like, yeah, I'm cool because I don't care about things. And like you're literally saying I'm cool because I don't care about things.
Oh yeah.
And then you have like his love interest who's like, yeah, you're stupid. And then like 5 minutes later, like, hey, I really like you. Let's go out. Like,
right.
The relationship between Steve, Matt, and Andrew felt organic enough, like a high school relationship between them. But every other accessory character just felt fake and completely forced.
I feel like even the core trio, which I think was actually like what it was supposed to be, was that really they were only super close because their power.
Yes.
Like beforehand, like otherwise they were not going to be. Like Matt and Andrew were already kind of on the fritz. And
it's kind of like Power Rangers, like, you know, these group of kids that might not be friends. Well, I guess in the original series they were friends and stuff, but I mean, like, as it gets further on in the movie Incantations and stuff, like these group of teenagers were the only thing that's kind of linking them together, is that they're have this power together that's linking them.
And I think they tried in like, and by tried I mean literally in a sentence, mention that Matt's love interest.
Yeah.
They had dated and were friends before, but then he got too cool and smart.
Yeah.
And then like he was like philosophical or something and she wasn't digging it. Like they mention it very briefly, but then it's like a very quick turn back around where then they're dating and they're all good again.
Yeah, you don't see any of that. And I think it's funny too. We're like,
but isn't that high school romance?
I guess maybe that's high school. I guess that's high
way.
school. I don't know. It feels too fake for me. It feels too caricature-ish.
Yeah.
I also love too when they're like going down to the cave and Matt's like, you ever heard of allegory of the cave? And I'm like, literally the only common denominator between what you're saying and what you're doing is that a cave is involved.
I
like,
know.
What you're doing has nothing to do with the actual allegory of the cave.
I feel like anytime people talk about like reality and like what is reality and stuff like that. So like I guess because they were about to find out they had powers or something, but I'm like
they hadn't even got the powers
But
yet.
that's the thing. They were really trying to like hone in on the fact that he was like so smart and philosophical, and I'm like, I don't even think somebody who was like that douchey would bring that up because that's like beneath them even. Like,
yeah, well,
we were really grasping.
It was.
It's
a little much. So, those are some things I wanted to talk about. Let's get into info about this film here.
Okay.
Like I said, February 3rd, 2012, it came out. That was the weekend the weekend of the Super Bowl. So February 5th was a Super Bowl that year.
Okay.
This at the time was the 4th highest grossing movie on Super Bowl weekend. February is not a great time for movies back in that time. Now we have things like Deadpool that come out in February and a few other things. But for the most part, February is kind of like January, kind of a dead month.
Okay.
Not so much coming out. This had a $12 million budget. It grossed $126 million worldwide.
Jeez.
It made $55 million, I think, or like $25 million. I'm sorry, $25 million on its opening weekend.
Wow.
It doubled its budget opening weekend in America. This movie was a critical success.
Jeez.
It has an 85% critic score on Rotten Tomato and a 71% audience score. It was highly revered. Now, it was filmed. I know you're like, I hate that this is so...
I'm like, wait a minute. Didn't you tell me the like money and scores were awful on The Uninvited?
Yeah.
And now this is the opposite, and this movie is awful.
Yeah,
see, sometimes you cannot trust these
But see,
things.
most people will tell you that Chronicle is a good movie.
Okay, that's fair.
Most people will tell you that. And as much as I was disappointed this time around, I still thought it was a good movie for what it was. Because remember, this was at the beginning of the whole superhero renaissance, the Marvel-essence. Because
no, it was
because we the same year we got the first Avengers movie.
Yeah, but how many movies came out before the Avengers?
4 from Marvel.
Yeah, and like starting in like 2009.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is this was a interesting take when the superhero genre was getting hotter and hotter and hotter. And this was a very interesting take on the superhero genre.
This pales in comparison.
Well,
like there's not a redeeming thing.
Well, it's like indie film compared to like
you
big
can't
studio.
tell me that like this is better than even like Batman v Superman.
No, I'm not saying it's better. I'm just saying
low on the totem pole.
If this came out now, people may be like, yeah, whatever, because we're getting a little bit of the comic book burnout. But then it was hot. This was a hot commodity because it was playing an interest. It's like how Joker came out and everyone's raving about Joker because it's an interesting take on Joker and we're all craving for something like that. People were like, yeah, we've seen the good guy superheroes. We've seen like their origin stories and this and that. But what if it was like actual high school kids just goofing around and being stupid and like ended up killing people because they didn't know what they were doing and stuff like that?
I still feel like if anything that would have made it worse.
This movie actually was written with a way darker ending and they changed it halfway through.
What was the darker ending? Maybe that would have made it better.
All 3 of them were going to turn evil.
Oh, well, that would have been
They were going to kind of all go a little bit crazy and end up like trying to just like take over the world because they were like, no one has powers like us, no one can stop us. And they decided, no, there has to be like protagonist, antagonist. I don't know, I like movies that get weird, so like no protagonists or just all antagonists, sure, why not, give it a shot. I don't know. I think it would have been interesting.
It would have been hard to have a finite ending unless they just blew up the whole world.
Well, it's funny too because this movie, I'll get to it in a sec. This was filmed mostly in Cape Town, South Africa, because it was way cheaper there. So they had to ship in a bunch of cars because in South Africa they drive on the opposite side of America, like a lot of other countries do. So they had to ship in all the cars so people didn't know they were filming there. So they filmed the majority of this movie there, but they had a few things they filmed in Seattle and then a few things they filmed in Vancouver. And actually, Andrew's bedroom was on a soundstage, built in a soundstage in Southtown. In Cape Town, South Africa. So most of this movie was filmed in South Africa, which is kind of weird to think about, actually. Now, directed by Josh Trank. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Josh Trank here. He was kind of relatively unknown. He did like a short film, maybe one other feature before this. This was his big break, and this blew up, got his career boom, so big. He got offered Fantastic Four and offered a Star Wars movie. Fantastic Four in I think 2015 when it came out, which also starred Michael B. Jordan.
Right.
Such a critical failure, and also it was kind of known that he was very hard to work with on set, and he was changing his mind constantly. He was very disorganized. A lot of the problems fell on Josh Trank with why that movie was so bad. He got pulled out of the Star Wars. Like, he had a Star Wars gig. And because you did a movie so bad, like, Lucasfilms and Disney were like, nah, you're out of here. So that's crazy.
That's impossible!
Search your feelings. You know it to be true.
Like, insane.
It's
and
so
he really
sad.
hasn't.
Whoever tries to touch the Fantastic Four series is just.
I know. We'll see what Disney does with it now that they own it, but I don't know. And it's funny because he didn't work again from the time. He didn't direct again from the time Fantastic Four came out until this year with a movie called Capone, I think, which I haven't even heard of, honestly. But I'm just like, oh man, that sucks that you're this rising star. You write and direct this amazing thing that everyone loves. And then you just fart it all out with Fantastic Four. Like, what do you do?
To be fair, we've never seen it.
I've never seen it, but Joe told me don't even waste my time. I kind of want to make the guys watch it for the podcast eventually, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I think the original Fantastic Four from 2004 is almost unwatchable. We tried to watch it.
We tried.
It's really bad. So I'm like, how can this one be any worse? But we'll see.
Yeah.
The other person, Max Landis, he wrote it with Josh Trank, wrote this movie, wrote the screenplay. Now, Max Landis is working on a thing right now, or I'm not sure if it's done or not, but have you heard of Dirk Gently with Elijah Wood?
No.
Apparently, it's this great TV show, but Max Landis is writing that. Now, what I want to say about Max Landis is when this movie was finished, I think 20th Century Fox owns it. Oh, that it makes sense why they gave Fantastic Four to him then. They said, we want to do a sequel, a number 2. And I think it was supposed to be about some people also got powers and were trying to find Matt to take him out because they use their powers for bad and they know Matt's the last one or whatever. Well, Josh Trank was like, I'm not on board with this. But Max Landis was like, cool, I'll write a second script. Well, Josh Trank did everything because Josh Trank did not want a sequel to this movie. He thought that went solely against the whole point of this movie. He's like, I don't want another superhero film with all these sequels and it gets all convoluted and stupid. I wanted a story, tell it quickly, there it's done. So Josh Trank feigned being involved to keep pushing conversations back and meetings back and throw wrenches in plans and stuff to try and stop this sequel from happening. And all the way up to 2015, Max Landis was still involved, writing a script, wrote a whole script. And then they kicked Josh Trank out. They kicked Max Landis out. They kept the script. They gave it to a new set of writers, and now we've never heard of it again. So who knows if down the line we're going to get a Chronicle 2 or something. But
dear Lord, I hope
know.
not.
I hope not either because I don't know what you can do to match this, and it's just going to be worse. Sometimes you just need to let things be and be their
I'm
own
also
single
like,
thing.
So you are going to give Paris Hilton a hard time for how she died in House of Wax, and you're not going to say anything about how Andrew died?
Yeah, but they're superheroes.
I don't care. It was literally the same.
The guy used telekinesis on it.
Lazy.
He used telekinesis on it.
It was so lazy.
We'll get to that later.
Okay, sorry.
All right. So let's talk about who's in this movie. Dane DeHaan plays Andrew. This guy's a little bit of a superhero now as well because he was Harry Osborn in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. This guy can't catch a break. So Dane DeHaan is a good actor, and he's acted in some great stuff like, what's that movie with Chris Pine? The Place Beyond the Pines. He's a good actor, but he's been in a lot of hot garbage too. Like, you don't like him in this movie. He was Harry Osborn in the worst Spider-Man movie ever. He was in that Valerian movie in the City of a Thousand Planets. That didn't do well, and he was in that. So I'm kind of like, yeah, Dane DeHaan just isn't getting a lot of recognition. I feel like he needs to get some better roles going out there. He looks young in this too. Very young looking. We have Alex Russell played his cousin Matt. He was in the Carrie remake, which we haven't seen yet.
Nope.
He was in a movie called The Host, and he's in the new. You remember the movie SWAT? It's like a early 2000s action film. They have a TV show now that he's in of it. SWAT. Yeah, I don't know. Never watched it, but I've heard of it.
No, never even heard of it.
We have Michael B. Jordan as Steve. Now, he's made some missteps because of Fantastic Four, but he's in mostly good stuff. He was in The Wire. He was in Friday Night Lights, which is something that we were told we should check out. He was in Fruitvale Station, Creed, and of course everyone knows him as Killmonger in Black Panther. And I just heard from my friend Jordan Griffin told me, we were talking about, because we watched Mortal Kombat the other night, he was like, oh yeah, they're making the movies. Like, apparently Michael B. Jordan's going to be Jax in that movie. And I'm like, all right, if he puts on a few pounds like he did for Creed, I'm like, I could see him as Jax. That would be pretty good. That would be pretty cool. So
interesting.
Yeah, that would be a very interesting casting. I like that. And then finally, Michael Kelly plays Andrew's abusive dad. He was in Man of Steel and most notably House of Cards. He was a pretty big role in House of Cards, and that's where I knew him from. He also looks like Larson from the podcast Going In Raw with
I was
Steven
actually
Larson.
thinking that.
So if you're a wrestling fan, there's a podcast out there called Going In Raw, and it's with Steven Larson. And I love those guys. They're hilarious. They used to do stuff on Machinima when that was a thing and do all these videos. They did the top 10 videos. This guy looks exactly like Larson. It was so weird. So weird. But anyway, moving on, we're going to get to the part of the podcast where I get to explain the movie quickly for everyone. Oh, yes. It's time for Jordan to explain the movie quickly. You ready for this?
I'm ready.
A bunch of kids are acting like kids in a movie would act and go down a hole in the middle of nowhere to see this shiny alien thing. It gives them superpowers, and then nothing else is explained except that great power can corrupt greatly. One of them goes all supervillain, a battle ensues, and we have the most Marvel film of the decade.
Fair enough.
Boom. There we go. So let's talk about the plot of this movie,
okay.
and then you can kind of poo-poo as much as you want on going through the plot of this movie. This is the plot breakdown. So we start off, we find out Andrew is this unpopular kid. He starts filming everything because his mom is sick and his dad is abusive, so he's got a rough life, and he's kind of like documenting. They make it seem like he's documenting so that he has evidence against his dad, so his dad will stop beating him. But I'm also like, why are you filming the rest of the time then? Which doesn't make sense. And why is it so important you're filming nonstop? Mm-hmm. We meet Matt, who is Andrew's cousin, and they go to school together. Matt gets Andrew to go to this party, and at the party, Matt and Andrew and this popular kid from school, Steve, find this hole in the ground. In the hole, they find this alien thing that gives them superpowers. Now, my question is, it's just the three of them, but when they show up there, Steve's like, yeah, they were all here a second ago, but they all left. I'm like, first off, if there's something so dang cool about this thing, there's no way that everyone's leaving. Like, we've all been in high school. When there's something like even mildly interesting, everyone kind of crowds around it, and then you just kind of end up chilling there for the next like hour, because even when you lose interest in it, no one's the first one just to leave. You're all kind of like, yeah, we're still hanging out and being dumb. And like, especially if you're drinking and like getting high and stuff. I don't know. So that whole thing was kind of like, that's very weird that they just conveniently all left at the same time, but you decided to stay back. Like, what's going on with this? So I didn't like that. We find out, so Andrew finally gets some friends with these superpowers. He's like, I got friends. It's kind of, and he's happy finally. He's having fun. And they're strengthening their abilities. There's a lot of them testing out their powers. They learn to fly. all this stuff. It's like a montage of just like superhero testability type things. It's kind of like in Shazam and stuff like that. So there's a small part in these scenes that I liked, and I don't know if you caught on, but while they're all hanging out, they're learning their abilities, they always made it so that you were subconsciously aware that Andrew was still always the outcast. Even though they were all cool and hanging out and all had powers, there were scenes where like Steve and Matt would be on their phone and Andrew's just kind of sitting there because he's too poor to have a phone or doesn't have a good phone to be like doing apps on it and stuff. They'll frame it where like he's kind of off and the other two are on the other side. So they make it very apparent that Andrew is still the outcast even though they're all kind of in this together.
Right. And also, from the beginning that he's like clearly had a little bit more time to like work on his powers compared to them. Like very quickly.
He's taking it a lot more serious.
He's kind of the front runner of the three of them.
Yeah, where the other two are kind of like goofing off and like, hey, I'm going to use it to have better sex and stuff. He's actually honing his abilities. So Andrew shows really quickly that his regard for life is low because while they're driving, he knocks a car off the freeway and almost kills someone. And so they kind of get in this fight about we can't just use these powers on people because we're going to end up hurting someone. So we have to have some rules about it. So they're kind of cool with that then. So Steve convinces Andrew to do the talent show, and he's like, come on, show everyone that you're cool and become popular. So Andrew agrees. He does this magic show thing. People think he's awesome. He goes to this party. Everyone's loving up on Andrew. But then he gets embarrassed because he throws up by drinking too much, where I'm like, first off, that happens to a million people when you're in high school drinking. I mean,
he threw up on a girl
when they were hooking up. Yeah, all that stuff.
A little bit different.
I don't know if that would have like killed his popularity, but he goes berserk.
It's because it was already held on by a thread.
I guess that's
so
true.
Like the what's the word? The herd quickly moved to him being very cool, and then as soon as he did something weird, it moved right back.
Yeah, you're right. It's finicky high school teenage kids. So Andrew kind of goes a little berserk on this and like stops talking to Steve, stops talking to Matt. He's kind of like in his own little world again and kind of pushing himself away from everyone like he was doing before. Doesn't really open up. Now, Andrew's dad confronts him and starts abusing him again, but Andrew kind of fights back this time. And Andrew gets really pissed off about this and ends up flying up into a storm. And Steve goes up to find him and like try to talk him down and calm him down. Well, Steve ends up dying. Like Andrew accidentally kills him because he's so distraught. And so Matt's kind of...
We don't know it's accident.
Well, because he's like, Steve, I want you to leave. I want you to leave. Like,
yeah, it's one of the great scripted moments I was talking about.
I know, it's true.
It doesn't say it was accident.
Matt says, tell me how Steve got struck by lightning in the middle of a field when no lightning actually hit the ground. It's because they were up in the air and lightning struck him there. And
no, he said there was no lightning in the recorded storm. So how did it happen?
And I think it was because that storm was a manifestation of Andrew's anger.
But that's what he was implying, was that like this wasn't an accident. While everybody thought, oh, he got struck by lightning, he's like, I looked into it. Like, the storm didn't have any, so it was you.
Yeah,
like,
but
like he already knows
he knows he did it, but like Andrew didn't do it on purpose.
I think he totally did.
I don't think he did it on purpose.
Not like I'm gonna kill you. More like I am getting angry, and this is a result of.
Because Andrew was sad about it because he even goes to Steve's grave and is like said he was sorry, and he's like, I didn't mean to. Like, he talks at his grave about that. But anyway, now there's a rift. So like Steve dies, Matt doesn't really talk to Andrew much anymore because Andrew's like all off on his own little angsty space now. Matt's kind of moving on with his girlfriend. So Andrew ends up turning supervillain because he keeps thinking like, I'm so much more powerful than everyone. I'm the apex predator. No one can stop me. I should be able to do whatever I want. So he's kind of having these thoughts, and the catalyst is that Andrew's dad tells him that he's a loser and will always be a loser, and that kind of puts him over the edge. But I'm like, how did your loser abusive father telling you you're a loser make you like go so crazy all of a sudden? But I don't know.
I thought that the crux was that he tries to get medicine for his mom.
Well, that's when he decides then, okay, my mom's sick. I don't have enough money to buy the medication. So he goes out to kill the thugs in his neighborhood and take their money, but it's not enough. So he decides, okay, I got to go rob a store now.
Right.
And during robbing the store, he accidentally ends up blowing it up, and it kills the clerk behind the desk and ends up catching him on fire. And so he's now very injured and is in the hospital, and he's in police custody for murder. He's in the hospital. He's all burned up, and his dad shows up. And now his dad looks like he's sad for him, like kind of coming to his senses, like, oh, my son or whatever. But then he's like, your mother died tonight, and it's all your fault. Like, if you weren't out doing this stupid stuff, goofing around, I would have been there for her because I was out looking for you. Mm-hmm. She died, so it's your fault. And his dad is still... So his mom's died now, the one connection that he had, the one good relationship he had. His dad is still being super abusive, so that's when the switch just goes all the way. So he turns full supervillain, tries to kill his dad, but Matt saves his dad. Matt figures out something's wrong, so he comes down to the hospital. They have a showdown. Now, this is the part where we were both cracking up, though, because his girlfriend has a camera, and she's filming it, and part of what you're watching is her filming it. Well, they get picked up in their car by Andrew and, like, thrown up on the top of the Space Needle, and then, like, she falls down, but Matt comes and saves her and all this. During this whole sequence, she's holding on to the camera, perfectly steady, being able to capture everything that's going on. I'm like, nah, you in real life, you would have dropped that camera in 2 seconds.
Or
if,
it would be moving. Like, it wouldn't, like... It makes no sense.
That was very unrealistic. Again, like I said, like part of the problem is trying to find these unrealistic ways.
Can I also share one thing because you didn't bring it up?
What's up?
So at the beginning, when they're first learning how to hone their powers, Andrew says something to the effect of, I think it's like a muscle. Like if you go too quick, like you'll hurt yourself.
Yeah.
And so they allude to the fact that the reason their nose bleeds is because they've pushed themselves too hard.
Yes.
Like their superhero muscle isn't ready yet. So if they fly when they're not ready or whatever, they get this nosebleed. Well, they completely disregard that because then by the end, Matt gets a nosebleed and it means Andrew's in trouble. And you know what? And I'm like, this makes no sense.
No, they established that earlier, that they're connected, and when one is in trouble, when one is in trouble, the other. Yes, they did. Remember, Matt's nose starts bleeding. That's how Steve knows that Andrew's.
But that's
in
what
trouble.
I'm saying is that like at the beginning it means like I've pushed myself too much, and by the end it means no, somebody else is doing something they're not supposed to. I'm like, this is stupid. Like they should have just established something that was like a freaking Spidey sense. Not that 1 minute it's a nosebleed and the next minute it's something else. That was like one of the stupidest parts of it. I liked the beginning when they said, oh, if you push yourself too hard. I'm like, that's cool. It's kind of like a physical ramification. Like if your power was real, that you would then, but then for it to also be connected to another person when they're like, that makes no sense. You cannot justify that.
I feel like they did a good job.
They didn't.
Of clarifying
you guys can
that.
Watch the movie. You let me know.
I think they did a good job of clarifying
at
it.
All.
Well, Max Landis has also said that the organism is a MOGO, which I forget what that is, a microorganism. So it's an alien power that, when bestowed to organic life, gives them these powers, but when it bestows it, it connects everyone. So anyone who touches this will be connected to the other people that also have it. Mm-hmm. So if someone else later finds this and touches it and does all that. So how come
then when somebody at the beginning pushes themselves too hard, they didn't all get a nosebleed?
Because they were still doing baby stuff, just like telekinesis.
See, but it doesn't matter. It's all relative.
Yeah.
The first time they pushed their power too hard versus the last time. It's all relative.
Yeah. I mean, it's a storytelling device to let you know that they're connected and they're able to.
Yeah, that's just an example of the many things in this movie that I'm like, you're just like, this, it doesn't have to make sense. You're just using it and being like, it's a superhero movie. You don't have to ask questions.
I mean, when it's based off of something that's not in reality, I guess you can make up the laws of your universe all you want. But I think that's
the difference between what I personally think makes superhero movies really good is when they don't just rely on that. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, of course, anything could be written off and you could be like, well, it's not real, so they could do whatever they want. But I'm like, that's lazy.
I don't know.
I don't like it.
I personally feel like they did a good job of explaining everything well enough. I think the thing they didn't explain that great is why the hole was covered up and why the park rangers were telling him to get away. I'm like, was this an FBI thing? Was there some weird dark agency type thing?
That's what I'm saying. If you're down to watch a movie and not really have any questions or not really think much more behind it, then I think you'd like this movie. But
I think that they also left a lot of things untold on purpose because they didn't want to waste time with giving you things that didn't matter. Because I think they were like, who cares where it came from? Who cares who's looking for it? All that matters is these 3 kids went in, they got superpowers, and this is the story that happened afterwards. So I think that they weren't trying to flesh out a universe. This is the thing,
though. I think if you had solid acting and a solid
the acting
script
wasn't the greatest.
and all the other things, then like overlooking a few things, because no movie is perfect. So if you had all these other things in place and then you just kind of brushed over some other stuff, I feel like it'd be fine.
Yeah.
But you can't fail across the board and then also dismiss, like, you know what I mean? There was like no redeeming qualities for me.
I don't know. I feel like the pacing was fine and everything in it and how they told it. But everyone's got their own opinion. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who didn't like this movie like you too.
Right.
So it didn't make $1 billion, so it's obviously not that great of a movie. It only made $126 million. So
chump change
over here. So getting back to the story, Andrew and Matt have their face-off. Andrew keeps hurting people and going crazy. Matt's trying to get him to stop. Matt realizes he's not going to stop, so he ends up killing him by using a giant staff from a statue,
aka Paris Hilton from House of Wax.
And I love how they do it too, where it's like it happens and then they show you again from a different angle, and I'm like, what is this, like the replay thing?
Instant replay.
Yeah, I'm like, what is this, like one of those like Japanese TV shows where they get hit with the ball in the face and they do it again, like boo 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 boo, like they keep replaying it. Like that was kind of hokey. I didn't like that. And then Matt ends up taking Andrew's camera to Tibet, because earlier in the movie they were talking about how Andrew really wanted to go to Tibet to see the monks. And that's kind of the end where Matt just leaves his camera. He's like, see, you were a good guy, but you kind of like went crazy, and I'm sorry that I had to kill you, but like I wasn't going to let you hurt more people, all that kind of stuff. So that is the movie. I got some fun facts for you. What is facts? Baby, they're fun. They're fun. Oh yeah. What is facts? Baby, they're fun. They're fun. Oh yeah. First fun fact is that the 3 leads lived together in a house for 15 days because Josh Trank wanted them to get familiar with one each other before filming. So they had like a little summer camp situation in a house.
Yes.
The girl with the pink hair that's making out with Andrew at the party that he barfs on, that girl is actually Dane DeHaan's wife.
Who's Dane DeHaan?
Played Andrew.
Oh.
So
it's his wife.
They're married. Yeah, they're married.
So she shouldn't have been upset.
No, would have been totally fine. So originally in the script, Andrew was supposed to rip apart his father's limbs like he did the spider, but that was going to give him an R rating. So they had to take it out because they were trying to get away from an R rating.
Oh, that would have been cool if that was foreshadowing.
Yeah, right? Yeah, I thought that would have been pretty cool too. And then the other thing I want to mention here is I looked up the soundtrack, and it's a lot of like songs that were in the movie. But I love, so I don't care for a lot of the songs, but the song Baptism by Crystal Castles is on it, and I love that song a lot. So I was like, that's cool that Crystal Castles is on here and everything. I have a conspiracy, or not a conspiracy, a fan theory.
Okay, and then I have a question for you.
Ask your question first.
No, you go first.
So the fan theory is that this whole, the videography that Andrew is doing is actually his suicide note.
Oh.
Because that's the reason he has it with him all the time. So he states
interesting
that when he starts the film that he's doing it because his dad beats him and he's going to start filming everything now. But later on, when he's in the car with Matt, and Matt's like, why are you filming everything? And Andrew responds with, it serves a purpose. Kind of like he's going to film everything to justify, so when he dies, people can see how terrible his life was and be like, this is my suicide note. See, you get why I wanted to kill myself. And they even go as far to say that at the end, he still wanted to die because his mom had died now, which was his last like hold to humanity, that he was still suicidal, which is why he was pushing Matt so hard and he was like, well, I'm gonna make him kill me kind of thing.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that's the fan theory, is that the whole movie is supposed to be his suicide note.
That is definitely a very intriguing theory.
Yeah, found it on Reddit.
I'm okay with that.
So what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say that, do you feel like, because you brought up that the turning point is when his mom, when he can't
I think that's when
do the medicine,
he went all the
that's
way full villain, yeah.
But do you feel like one of the, okay, sorry, I just had like 5 thoughts enter my head. So I watch a lot of the like serial killer documentaries and stuff. And one of the ones that I was watching a little while ago is the Netflix series I Am a Killer.
Mm-hmm.
And I forgot what the like clause or like ruling is called, but I brought it up to you that if a person has had enough of a abusive childhood and was like quote like kind of in simple terms like never given a fair shot at life, that then they cannot get a life sentence ruling. Because they're like a product of their circumstances. Do you feel like there was any chance that Andrew could have got these powers and not been bad due to his awful life and his awful school and all of that stuff? Do you feel like there's any other reality where he could have been good when given the chance to be the apex predator?
So I think the question you're asking is actually the question that's being asked in The Killing Joke. The Batman comic, The Killing Joke.
Okay.
It's all about everyone could have one bad day that turns them bad and how you react to it. So Batman, parents murdered right in front of him, yet he becomes a vigilante to stop that from happening. Other people could have their parents murdered right in front of them, and then they could say, the world's evil, I'm going to go around trying to just destroy everyone because so much was wrong to me and stuff like that. So essentially, I think there could be two things. Do I think that in most traditional stories, could the person who had the mom they loved died and an abusive father and a terrible childhood be the hero? No, I think traditionally they're usually the villain because they're given the short end of the stick, and then when you get power, you get drunk with it because you never had power before. Do I think that that's always true? No, I think some people could say, I'm going to stop the cycle, and I've been given these powers, and I'm going to do something good with it because my life didn't matter before, and now it can. So, do I think Andrew could have used it for good? No, I don't think the character of Andrew would have ever used it for good. I think that his view on life, I think his upbringing, and I think his situation and his social status would lead him to this conclusion of, I'm finally powerful. I'm going to use this power selfishly.
See, I don't think you really got my question.
Okay,
but I
what's
do
your
like
question?
your answer. But I was thinking more like, so even if he did what was quote unquote good from a protagonist point of view, if we were watching it, he would have had to kill the dad. He would have still had to steal the money or hurt the thugs in some way to get the money.
Yes.
Like, it would have all ended up still being bad things. So is there any reality where he could have had this power and been good?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think he would have had to kill the dad. He could have, like, taken the dad to jail or something and, like, dropped him off in a cell and, like, you know, like, flown him
with,
above.
Like, the tape?
Yeah, like...
And been like, he abused me?
Yeah, be like tied him up.
There was never actually anything... There was only one time on the tape.
It was abusive,
They showed him actually get hit.
There were 2 or 3 times. At the beginning when he, like, storms into the room and smacks him on the head. Then,
that time
then
I remember.
In the basement...
The basement, I remember.
Yeah, he was beating the crap out of him. And then he starts kind of, like, almost choking him in the hospital, which was on a security camera.
Right.
I think, yeah, you do the whole thing where it's like you tie him up, you fly him with the tape you drop him off at the thing and be like, Merry Christmas, you know, like, here you go. And then the dude goes to jail for abuse. There's proof there and everything. You can testify in court then, all that kind of stuff. I feel like you didn't need to kill anyone to take the money. You could have went out to the thugs and still taken their money and, like, knocked them around a little bit, but then taken the money. But it's illegal drug money for people that are bad. I guess I guess what you could have done is you could have found some type of, like, illegal something or other and taken money from them that's been laundered because it's, you know, and use it for that.
But that's the thing is, I'm like, that's the whole thing about, like, no matter what, even if you're in a bad position or you have a bad upbringing or whatever, like, at some point, the only reality is you have to do what's bad to get what you want.
I mean, let's be honest. Big Pharma are the real villains here, charging $700 for some pills to keep a lady alive. I think justified. He could have walked into that store, taken those pills, and just walked out, and I would have been like, good job, my friend.
Yeah.
Stick it to Big Pharma. Screw them. Like, people need their medicine.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's all about your viewpoint of how you feel about
That's
stuff
true.
like that,
That's
you know?
True.
because then you could be like, well, what about the pharmacist? He paid wholesale to get those, and he's just trying to make his money back on it too, and now he's out the money and this, that, and the other thing.
That's what I'm saying. No matter
so,
what.
Yeah, it's true. It's hard.
Yeah, like what is the good scenario? Like what was he supposed to do?
Honestly, I mean,
that was more like my
if I were him, I would have stolen the medicine.
Yeah.
I would have taken it and been like, look, I'm literally taking all I need to keep my mom alive.
You know what he could have done? He could have hired an agent, done a magic show on tour,
made the money. Seriously though, he could have got a Chris Angel thing going on. He could have really monetized the money this
and then paid for it.
Seriously, and I would have just moved out if I had powers like that. And I knew that my dad was really in love with my mom and wouldn't actually harm her and always was thinking to take care of her. I would have just moved out.
But but I feel like one of the things I did like about this movie was that the whole time, the kind of redeeming quality of the dad is that, like, yeah, he's this tormented, his wife is dying, so he's letting it out on his son. But then there's one scene where he's looking through Andrew's stuff and the mom is like screaming bloody murder because she's in so much pain and he is not phased. Like he just wants to look for it. So that's when it changes when you're like, wow,
you're right. He really doesn't
there
care.
is no redeeming quality for this person. Like, so I feel like I liked that. Like that was the one thing that you kind of were like giving him the little bit of the benefit of the doubt, and then they took it away. They took it away in like 3 seconds.
Yeah, I don't know. That's hard, and I think that's the whole point of this is like, in the situation, what would you do? Because it's kind of like a snowball effect. Like he starts because he's like, I'm gonna go do this one thing for something, and then it kind of blows up, and then you go a little crazy and stuff. Like, you know how it escalates really fast in this movie, but it does start with a small thing and then gets big. So I don't know. I feel like I would have just flown my mom out of there, left the house, gotten the pills for her, not been around the dad. Like, I don't know. I feel like there's a lot you could have done to not turn big villain, especially trying to take on the whole, like, freaking military on your own. Like, there was a ton of cops out there and, like, tanks rolling in and whatnot.
But at that point, he already thought he was the apex predator.
That's true. Like, no one can stop me.
He already was like, I am the alpha. Like,
I am the head of everything. No one can stop me, not even the whole military. Craziness. Well, there you go. That's us talking about this movie. I would recommend people to watch it. Madison would recommend you go watch something completely different. What would
go watch some paint dry?
Yeah. No, go watch Bob Ross's Paint Dry, because that is actually very fun to watch.
Yes. That is like oddly addicting.
It is very addicting. All right, guys. So check us out on Instagram. Check us out on YouTube. All the links are in the show notes below. If you give us a review, we will give you a sticker. Thank you to Ben from Petrified Gumbo Music for making our intro song. We have an Amazon link on wreckmypodcast.com. We also have a Redbubble store where you can buy some merchandise. We have a Patreon where we have a bunch of awesome patrons. Really thankful for all of them. If you want to go get some type of reward tier, feel free to hop on over there and check out what we got going on over there. Madison, thank you for being here. I appreciate you watching a movie you hated for this podcast.
And if everybody on who's listening loves this, please don't come for me. This wasn't my favorite movie.
No, and that's fine.
My favorite
that's
one.
fine.
Yeah. Don't hate me.
Yeah.
Don't encourage Jordan to divorce me or anything.
No, never. I mean, you like a lot of great movies like Dirty Dancing and Grease.
Oh, come on. I'm the one who chose to watch Mortal Kombat the other day.
I know. I was so happy when you said, "Hey, can we watch Mortal Kombat?" And I was like, heck yeah, we can.
See?
I was like, you said, can we watch Mortal Kombat? And I went, flawless victory. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. We love getting wrecked with you. We'll see you guys next week.
Wreck My Podcast. My podcast.
Okay, I'm going to do the intro real quick.
Do it.
Look, it's a bird. It's a plane. No, it's a superhero movie in the found footage genre that solely underutilizes Michael B. Jordan. I said solely instead of sorely. Dang it. All right, let me try that again. I don't know why my intros are so hard to say lately. There we go. All right. You ready?
I'm ready.
Bailey, you ready?
Do you want to give me some Mambo taxis before we start this? I'll think your jokes are a lot better.
Is that what the margaritas are called? A Mambo taxi?
Yeah.
That's a weird name for a margarita.
AKA a denim tequila.
Tequila. Lots of tequila. All right.